All right, kicking off the week with some good news in the housing market. Groundbreaking on new homes surging nearly 22% in May, the biggest jump in nearly a year. That's according to the National Association of Home Builders. Building permits also jumped last month, rising over 5% from April. For more on that data, we turn to Jim Tobin, National Association of Home Builders CEO. I know we've got some good data out too, and the housing starts from the government. Let's talk about both data points that we have, both confidence, starts. It looks like housing is just having a moment more than we expected. How would you characterize what we're seeing right now, Jim?
Cautious optimism is how I would characterize it. Yesterday, we saw the NAHB Wells Fargo Housing Market Index jump to 55 points, which puts us in positive territory. The sixth month in a row of an increase after 12 months of a decline in 2023. So definitely our builders' optimism, forward-looking index to the future of the housing market and the strength of the housing market certainly was confirmed today by the starts and permit numbers. So we are cautiously optimistic that we are starting to see that rebound in home construction and housing.
Jim, what's fueling that cautious, optimistic, as you put it, outlook here at this point? Because even though it is still cautiously optimistic, it's much better than we have seen in recent months.
Well, I think what we have seen is obviously demand is very, very high for housing. And with so few existing homes on the market, people are now turning towards new home sales. In fact, newly constructed home sales are making up a larger percentage of the monthly for sale numbers, which means that as people turn towards newly constructed homes, we're going to see that our members and the builders across the country are going to respond to that, and they're going to put more supply in the marketplace. And so, and then you add on to that the fact that people are starting to get more comfortable with what I would say are these elevated interest rates up in the 6 or 7%. That's no longer a barrier to entry for a lot of people.
Yeah, Jim, that used to be the number. So 6% was kind of the number where you saw people saying, hold up, we're not going into this kind of market. So is your expectation, is it really right now what we're seeing like an inventory issue? Is that what's fueling the strength that we're seeing, or, to a certain degree, the strength that we're seeing in the housing market?
We're underbuilt, and we're underbuilt, and we have been for the last decade. And I think finally and demand has remained high, even though we saw a sag last year in demand as interest rates crept up and up, and people got a little bit nervous about how high they would go. As we've reached this plateau, it's clear that people are willing to re-enter the market at this interest rate level, and I just think that demand remains high, and as long as local, state, and federal lawmakers are willing to create the regulatory environment that allow us to deliver homes at an affordable price, I think we're going to see this in a sustained level for the next little while.
What are you seeing just in terms of the incentives that builders are offering to attract buyers? Is something we've been talking about for the last couple of months. Is that still the case, and what are they doing now?
Well, we are actually, in the numbers that we're watching, we're seeing the incentives, not only the number of builders who are offering incentives, but also the incentives themselves are dropping, which means to me that the public is willing to come into the marketplace and doesn't need those incentives to get over the goal line to purchase a home. So that, I think, is a good sign about the health of the marketplace, but also importantly, the health of the home buyer out there. So that's a one positive sign we've seen that's breaking a recent trend.
Speaking of the health of the home buyer, there has been an affordability issue when it comes to some of the homes on the market, So what are you seeing in terms of ways to address that issue?
Well, I think when it comes to affordability, it's firstly when we talk about the construction of new homes, it starts and ends with regulatory burdens on the construction of homes. Local governments put time delays in front of builders. Regulatory burdens, even at the federal level, those all drive up the cost of housing. And then you also have to think about the supply chain. We have not fully resolved the supply chain bottlenecks in all of the building materials out there, nor have we seen inflation drop all the way back down to the Fed's target rate of 2%. So there still continues to be supply chain concerns out there as well. And then the last piece, of course, is how builders finance their homes, and that's through the acquisition, development, and construction lending in the country, traditionally done by community banks. that lending is much more expensive, and the availability of that credit has gotten tighter over the last 6 months.
So with all that, Jim, taken into account, then what do you think the housing market looks like by the end of the year, given the fact that there are still so many, it sounds like, challenges here presented to the industry?
Well, again, it's like I call on policymakers to try to do what they can to lessen that regulatory burden on housing and move more housing production into the pipeline faster. I am encouraged by the numbers that we've seen, not only over the last 6 months with our builder sentiment, but now these permit and starts numbers point to, again, a cautious optimism for the second half of this year. And I'm optimistic that we'll see the market and the construction sector continue to rebound through 2023 and then really start to take off in 2024.
All right, we appreciate that look ahead and also the analysis of what has come today. Jim Tobin, our thanks to you so much.
Thank you.